What if an entire armored convoy could be destroyed before it even knew it was under attack?
At 4:30 a.m., a mechanized column moves forward across open terrain, engine steady, formation intact. To the crews inside, this is a controlled advance, planned, disciplined, and protected. But far above, at nearly 1,700 meters, a reconnaissance drone is already watching everything. On its feed, the entire column is visible. 1 lead tank, 6 armored personnel carriers, and 3 logistics trucks following behind. The spacing is consistent, about 45 to 60 meters between vehicles. On paper, this reduces the risk of multiple losses from a single strike. The lead tank is slightly ahead, just enough to become isolated if disrupted. The middle vehicles form a tighter cluster, creating a natural pressure point. The rear trucks, heavier and slower, carry fuel and ammunition assets that can turn into liabilities if hit. Within seconds, every vehicle is converted into live digital coordinates. Speed, direction, spacing tracked continuously. Nothing is estimated. Everything is precise. Data flows instantly to units positioned kilometers away. Artillery crews begin calculating firing solutions. Drone operators study angles of approach. No one needs to search for targets because the targets are already defined. On the ground, soldiers focus on what they can see. They scan tree lines, watch the road ahead, and rely on armor and onboard systems. The formation looks stable. The mission still feels under control. But from above, the situation is already different. The convoy is not advancing freely. It is moving through a space that has been measured, analyzed, and prepared. No explosions yet, no visible threat. And that is exactly what makes it dangerous. Because in this kind of battlefield, the first strike does not begin with a blast. It begins with visibility. The side that sees first, calculates first, and decides first takes control before the fight even starts. At 5:30 a.m., the strike comes without warning. An explosive impact from above or below forces it to a complete stop. In less than a second, the front of the convoy is blocked. Drivers brake hard. The spacing collapses from around 50 meters to less than 15 meters. Vehicles that were once spread out now bunch together under pressure. Some try to reverse. Others hesitate, unsure whether to push forward or hold position. From above, the reconnaissance drone adjusts its focus. The long formation is gone. Now, multiple vehicles are grouped into a small area, clearly visible, easy to track, and far more vulnerable. Coordinates update in real time. Within seconds, artillery units receive the new data. The first shells land close within 10 meters of the cluster. Dust rises. Shockwaves hit armor. A second volley follows, even tighter. The goal is not immediate destruction. The goal is to lock everything in place. At 6 a.m., engines are still running, but movement is gone. Vehicles are intact but trapped. The convoy has lost its rhythm. Inside, crews feel the pressure building. Staying inside becomes dangerous. One by one, hatches open. Soldiers move out, searching for cover in open terrain. Now the situation is worse. The vehicles are clustered, the troops are exposed, and the sky is still watching. What was once a controlled advance has turned into a compact target zone, because when targets are close together, one strike is never enough. 6:05 a.m. As the convoy compresses into a tight cluster, an FPV drone drops low and accelerates toward the target at nearly 110 kilometers per hour. It flies just a few meters above the ground, avoiding detection until the final seconds. The vehicles, now packed within a space of roughly 70-90 meters, form a dense and exposed target zone. The first drone strikes. It hits a stalled armored vehicle near the front, creating a sharp explosion across the top surface. Smoke rises, visibility drops, and the already blocked route becomes even harder to navigate. Seconds later, a second drone enters. This one targets a vehicle attempting to reverse. The driver tries to adjust direction, but the space is too tight. The drone closes in and impacts the rear section, disabling movement completely. At least 6 vehicles are trapped within the same narrow corridor. Some are damaged. Others are intact but unable to move forward or back. A third drone follows. Instead of hitting a burning target, it selects a still operational vehicle in the middle of the formation. The impact forces it to stop instantly, splitting what remains of the convoy into separate segments. Within less than 2 minutes, the convoy loses all coordination. Each vehicle becomes isolated, reacting independently instead of as a unit. Above, reconnaissance drones continue feeding live updates. Operators adjust targets constantly, focusing only on vehicles that still have mobility. No resources are wasted on already disabled units. On the ground, conditions worsen quickly. Smoke and debris reduce visibility. Crews inside vehicles face limited awareness, while those outside have minimal protection. Movement becomes slower, more uncertain. The battlefield is no longer fluid. Every attempt to reposition is tracked. Every movement creates a new target. The convoy, once advancing with purpose, is now fixed in place under continuous pressure. Because once mobility is lost, the situation becomes predictable. Targets cannot escape, spacing cannot be restored, and recovery becomes increasingly difficult. What follows next is not a single strike, but a continuation, where each new attack builds on the damage already done, pushing the entire formation closer to complete collapse. At 6:35 a.m., with the convoy immobilized and compressed into a narrow zone, the situation escalates rapidly. A new FPV drone enters low, flying fast and steady. This time, it doesn't aim for armored vehicles. It locks onto a logistics truck positioned toward the rear one, carrying fuel and ammunition. Slower, less protected, and now trapped in the same corridor, it becomes the most dangerous target on the field. The drone closes in. Impact. The initial explosion is small, but what follows is not. Within seconds, stored ammunition ignites. A secondary blast erupts, significantly larger, estimated 5 to 8 times more powerful than the drone's charge. Fire spreads outward, sending fragments across a radius of nearly 30 to 50 meters. The entire area changes instantly. Nearby vehicles are hit by debris. External systems are damaged. Some catch fire. Others are forced to shut down completely. What was already a stalled formation now becomes a hazardous zone filled with heat, smoke, and unpredictable explosions. At least 3 additional vehicles are affected within moments, either damaged by fragments or blocked by burning wreckage. The narrow corridor becomes even tighter, reducing any remaining chance of maneuver. The fire continues to spread. Fuel ignites along exposed surfaces. Thick smoke rises, reducing visibility even further. Drivers attempting to escape must now navigate through flames, debris, and limited space. From above, the drones continue to observe. Operators identify new weak points, vehicles still intact but now surrounded by chaos. No need to rush. The environment itself is doing part of the work. On the ground, coordination breaks down completely. Communication becomes unclear. Commands overlap. Some units attempt to reverse. Others remain stationary, unsure of the safest option. The original structure of the convoy no longer exists. It is no longer a formation, it is a chain reaction. One strike triggered a second. The second created conditions for a third. Each event amplified the next, turning a single disruption into widespread collapse. Within minutes, the convoy is no longer capable of organized movement. And at this stage, the objective has already shifted. This is no longer about advancing forward. It is about surviving the environment that has been created, an environment where every second increases risk, and every remaining vehicle becomes easier to isolate. Because once a chain reaction begins, stopping it becomes nearly impossible. What remains of the convoy is no longer moving as a single force. After the explosions and repeated strikes, the vehicles are no longer evenly spaced. Some are clustered tightly within 20 meters, while others are stranded farther back, separated by smoke, fire, and wreckage. What was once a controlled formation has turned into an uneven line of isolated segments, and this is where the real weakness becomes visible. The original plan relied on spacing for protection, keeping vehicles 40 to 60 meters apart to reduce damage from a single strike. But now, that spacing is gone in some areas and exaggerated in others. The result is imbalance. Close-range defenses cannot cover the entire stretch. Electronic interference systems lose effectiveness when vehicles are no longer aligned. A protective layer that once worked as a group now breaks apart when the structure collapses. In the front, damaged vehicles block the path. In the middle, tightly packed units become vulnerable to repeated targeting. In the rear, isolated trucks and carriers are left without support, unable to move forward or retreat safely. Each section faces a different problem, and none of them can solve it together. From above, the drones continue to observe the shifting geometry. The operators don't just see vehicles, they see gaps, clusters, and exposed lines. Every change in position creates a new opportunity. A cluster of 3 vehicles within 15 meters becomes a high-value zone. A single, isolated unit 70 meters away becomes an easy target with no immediate support. The battlefield is no longer defined by strength, it is defined by positioning. On the ground, crews attempt to react. Some vehicles try to re-establish distance, others hold position, unsure if movement will expose them further. Communication struggles to keep up with the speed of events. The formation cannot be rebuilt, and without formation, coordination fades. What remains is a series of disconnected elements, each one visible, each one vulnerable, each one waiting to be targeted individually. This is the turning point where the original strategy fails completely, because the formation that was designed to protect the convoy has now become the very thing that exposes it. And once the structure is gone, the next phase becomes inevitable. Not disruption, not delay, but systematic elimination, one target at a time. With the formation broken and every segment exposed, the final phase begins. FPV drones return this time not to disrupt, but to finish what has already been set in motion. One drone approaches from a low angle, targeting a vehicle still attempting to move at the rear. Its engine is running, tracks turning slowly, trying to escape the chaos. But speed is no longer an advantage. The drone adjusts mid-flight and strikes the side, stopping it instantly. Seconds later, another drone appears. It ignores the burning wrecks and focuses on a still active armored unit in the center. The vehicle has partial mobility, trying to reposition within a space of less than 25 meters. There is no room to maneuver. The drone closes in and impacts the upper section, disabling it completely. Now, fewer than 4 vehicles remain operational. Above, reconnaissance continues to guide every move. Operators select targets based on priority mobility first, then position. Anything that can still move becomes the next objective. A third drone enters the zone. This time, it targets an isolated unit roughly 60 meters away from the main cluster. With no nearby support and limited visibility, it becomes an easy target. The strike lands cleanly, removing the last chance of regrouping. Within minutes, the battlefield is silent in movement, but not in effect. Smoke fills the area. Damaged vehicles remain scattered across a corridor now less than 100 meters wide. No coordinated motion, no clear direction, only isolated remnants of what was once a structured advance. The process is precise. No wasted strikes, no random targets. Each drone is used to remove what still matters: mobility, coordination, and recovery. What remains is not a battle in motion, but a controlled end state. Looking back at the entire sequence, what stands out is not a single strike, but the chain of decisions that led to collapse. It began before the first explosion. The convoy was already being tracked, analyzed, and understood from above. Every vehicle, every gap, every movement was turned into data. What looked like a confident advance on the ground was, in reality, a system already exposed. Then came the first break. A single vehicle was stopped, and that was enough. The formation compressed, spacing disappeared, and control began to slip. From that moment on, the convoy was no longer dictating the pace of the battle. It was reacting to it. Artillery didn't need to destroy everything. It only needed to freeze the situation. And once movement stopped, the real shift happened. FPV drones entered not as random threats, but as precise tools. They didn't waste time on destroyed targets. They didn't strike blindly. Each move followed a clear logic: disable movement, split the formation, isolate what remains. And when the logistics vehicles were hit, the battlefield changed again. Secondary explosions multiplied the damage, turning support assets into force multipliers for the attacker. What followed was not chaos, it was control. A controlled dismantling of a mechanized force, step by step, layer by layer. From observation, to disruption, to immobilization, and finally, elimination. All within minutes. This is the reality of modern warfare. It's no longer just about armor thickness, firepower, or numbers. It's about visibility, speed of decision, and the ability to connect information with action faster than your opponent. A $500 drone can now shape the fate of vehicles worth millions, not because it is stronger, but because it is smarter, faster, and guided by real-time intelligence. And that raises a critical question for the future. Can traditional mechanized forces adapt to a battlefield where the sky is always watching? Or will they be forced to change completely smaller units, new tactics, new ways to move unseen? Because what we've just seen is not an isolated event. It's a pattern that is repeating across modern